What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be bringing back the top 1000 team selection. I know that we did this a couple of game weeks ago, and I haven't done one since about game week 9, but decided to bring it back now that we are in an international break, and we have a couple of days off, and I always say that past game week 10, that's a really good time to reflect on where you are in the overall rankings, and this is why this video is going to be so kind of useful for you guys today. So what we're going to be doing, if you guys haven't watched this top 1000 template, basically what I do is I look at the highest owned players within the top 1000 managers and kind of make a team selection out of that, and we kind of predict which transfers these managers might make going into the upcoming game week. In this video, that's going to be game week 12, obviously the next game week after this international break, and I always say you guys can use this information and this team in two specific ways. The first way is to kind of differentiate your own team from this top 1000. As I always say, the top 10k ownership is something that I always look at. So I'm going to narrow that down in this video, and we're going to be looking at the top 1000 managers and basically the effective ownership that these players might have. So the first way is going to be getting those differentials in, maybe differing from the top 1000, because if you have the exact team as the top 1000 and you're out of the top 1000, you won't be able to make up any points on these specific FPL managers. Then the second point is kind of a security basis. Maybe the top 1000 managers have a high owned player that you don't. What you can then do is bring this player in if they have good fixtures, good form, to give yourself a little bit of security and not allow the top 1000 managers to kind of get a one-up on you by not having this player. So overall, really like this kind of video. I think it's quite informative, so hopefully you guys do. And if it is something that you guys are interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So this is currently the top 1000 template, or at least the highest owned players within the top 1000 managers. And as you can see, a lovely 4-4-2 formation that can rotate depending on the fixtures for the bench. So as with any kind of team slash draft, I'm going to start off with the bench. Firstly, I just want to say thanks to fantasyfootballfix.com, where I got these stats from. They give you kind of the ownership of the top 1000 managers as well as the overall rankings, which is a video I might have released before this or after this. I'm kind of going to be recording both of these videos in the same night, so just stay tuned or just go watch back the video of the overall template team. But starting off with the bench, our second goalkeeper is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be Foster from Watford. So yes, Foster came in this season at 4.0 million. I think definitely the most popular second goalkeeper that a lot of us FPL managers did go for. Actually has won the spot over Bachmann. Bachmann unfortunately picking up a little bit of an injury, and Foster hasn't looked back since. Saved the penalty against Aubameyang in game week 11, so I don't think his starting position is going to be going anywhere anytime soon. That's going to be really useful for us as Sanchez owners after his red card suspension. But so Foster, pretty self-explanatory. The next three positions on the bench, our outfield bench players, are going to be Duffy, Brownhill, and then also Broja. So Broja is the only interesting kind of differential here. A quite low ownership there, but I think that just might be because the third forward position is quite lackluster at the moment. And in the top 1000, you can definitely see that these managers have not made use of a strong third striker and have decided to go for the 5.0 million Southampton one. Duffy and Brownhill, perfect kind of budget enabler picks. Duffy started off the season getting a few minutes, has continued that up until game week 11. I think he did start on the weekend for Brighton, and I think until maybe those centre backs are back to full fitness for Brighton, there might be some rotation there, but at least for the short-term future, I don't think Duffy is going anywhere. Brownhill, though, has definitely not been the best 4.5 pick. I think if you were to go with one now, it probably would be Norman from Norwich after his goal in game week 11, but I just think that Brownhill hasn't lived up to the hype that he had in pre-season, and unfortunately, if you did bring him in, you probably stuck with him. But we don't really want to focus on the bench. We want to look at the starting 11, so that's what we're going to move on to. And coming in with about 66% ownership, it's going to be the Arsenal goalkeeper Ramsdale. This is just kind of testament to the form that Ramsdale's shown over these last two game weeks. I mean, he even managed to pick up a bonus point after only getting one save. I mean, I might be a little bit of a Smith Rowe salty owner there, but I didn't really think that Ramsdale was going to get one. He did in the end for a lovely 7-point appearance after not really doing much, to be honest, against Watford. So that just shows you that even if Ramsdale's not making saves, getting kind of those passes and that to play with his feet out from the back, and that's definitely leading to some more bonus points that he's picking up over these past couple game weeks. Arsenal also have some lovely fixtures coming up, so I think that it's not too late to kind of bring Ramsdale in. But currently, I think if you want to go for a 4.5 goalkeeper, had a couple of price rises. Unfortunately, I think he's about 4.7 or might be 4.8 when you are watching this video. But now we go on to our back four, and the back four actually looks really strong on this top 1000 template. We've gone for one Man City defender of Cancelo. Cancelo just showed his attacking form, and the reason why he's more expensive than Diaz at the current moment, just because even if Man City don't get a defensive return, I mean, Cancelo just has so much attacking attacking threat, and he showed that against United on the weekend. So Cancelo comes in here with the 76.1% ownership, and then we go on to Trent Alexander-Arnold, one of the more highly owned players within the top 1,000 managers. And as we saw with Man City, even if Trent doesn't get defensive returns like Cancelo, the attacking threat is just so strong, picking up an assist and a goal on the weekend against West Ham. So 87.6% ownership for Trent Alexander-Arnold. We then move on to our double up in the Chelsea defense, and if I do think you guys want two Chelsea defenders, it's going to be Reece James and then also Ben Chilwell. So James currently just edging Chilwell with 62%, whereas Ben Chilwell only comes in here with 50.8% ownership. A relatively good percentage there for both of these two options. And what this does show you is that if you guys don't own two Chelsea defenders, you almost want them to concede the clean sheet just because the top 1000 has such a high effective ownership of the Chelsea defenders. So really strong backline here. This is kind of the perfect backline I would go for in a back four. And then obviously if Reguilon and a player like an Emerson come through the ranks under Conte, they could be some cheap alternatives to these current players. But then go on to our midfield department, and here it holds the number one player in terms of ownership within the top 1000 teams. That's going to be Mo Salah with a ridiculous 99.9% ownership. So if you guys don't want to do the math here, that means that one manager within the top 1000 managers does not own Mo Salah, which just shows you that no single player is essential, and I want to really see what manager that was and how he managed to get this high in the rankings. But I completely agree with this kind of ownership. I think that Mo Salah is definitely the most essential player to get, but you guys probably do own him, so you don't have to kind of tell you guys this. Our next three midfielders are quite nice in terms of Phil Foden for Man City. Although Phil Foden hasn't picked up that many points recently, I do think that he should be on most people's horizons. As a Man City forward, kind of starting as a forward, even though he is out of position, it should be on anyone's kind of watch list. And I think it's only a matter of time before Phil Foden racks up the attacking returns that he should be getting over these next couple game weeks. So Phil Foden has a 76.0% ownership within the top 1000 managers, which is a really high ownership considering the fact that I think most of us consider Phil Foden to be a little bit of a differential. The next two midfielders come in with about 60% ownership. It's going to be Rafinha from Leeds and then also Mbeumo for Brentford. So Mbeumo, a little bit of a disappointing kind of a fixture in game week 11 against Norwich. Relatively easy fixture on paper, but it seems against these easier teams, Brentford really struggle, and unfortunately Mbeumo, although started the game, did not get any attacking returns. I do kind of hope that Mbeumo manages to return a couple, and the one thing that's interesting about him is that when you do look at his overall ownership, really kind of low owned. I think it's under 5%, but within the top 1000 template, he's owned by about 60% of managers. The final midfielder, as I mentioned, Rafinha coming in with about a 60% ownership, more kind of about the 59%, but Rafinha has had some great form over these last two game weeks. Although he might not have the best stats in the world, definitely shows you that when he does get these odd chances, is converting them. Now, I don't know how sustainable these chances are, as you might have seen kind of long range shots and also kind of shots off free kicks, but I mean, at least he's going for goal and he might get lucky in the next couple game weeks as well. Then our final two players in the top 1000 template is going to be Ivan Toney and then also Antonio from West Ham. So Antonio, really high ownership there in general. In terms of the kind of overall ownership stats, Antonio ranks quite highly in that. So no kind of surprise there that within the top 1000 managers, he's quite highly owned. 75.6% of managers do own him, which is a little bit surprising. I thought that more managers might have jumped off him considering the game week 11 fixture swing. But this just shows you that the top 1000 managers have kept faith, and maybe we should have as well. And then finally, to kind of accompany Mbeumo, his colleague Ivan Toney with about 37% of ownership within the top 1000 managers. Now, as I mentioned with Mbeumo, not kind of a good game in game week 11 against Norwich, but I'm pretty sure with these next games coming up, Ivan Toney and Mbeumo can bounce back, and hopefully Brentford do as well. So overall, I really do like this team, but I guess we would have, because obviously this team is doing well this season, and that's why the top 1000 managers do have it. Let me know in the comments down below, which players would you maybe change, which players are your differentials compared to the top 1000 template, and which players do you think you might be bringing in after seeing these ownership stats. But now going on to the transfer plans for the next couple game week, and in this talking point, I kind of predict what transfers these managers might do. So what I actually did was I went over to the FPL website and I created this exact template team in the transfer page, and I actually ended up with 6.4 million. Now this might be a little bit of an unrealistic amount. Maybe my team value is higher than yours, or maybe it's less than the top 1000 managers, but this should give you kind of a rough estimate of what these managers might be dealing with if they do have the exact template team. So 6.4 million is absolutely sensational, and as you guys can see, they're my two favorite options to maybe go for within the top 1000 managers is going to be Harry Kane and then also Heung-min Son. And when you take 6.4 million into account, I think that most of these managers can simply upgrade any kind of player and still be able to afford the Spurs assets. So if I had to kind of predict which assets might be on the receiving end of a transfer out, I'm thinking of an Mbumo and Ivan Toney. I think that's kind of a direct upgrade for these two options. If they have more money, could also look at a Broja up to maybe someone like a Harry Kane. But also I think that maybe someone like a Diego Jota could be quite a popular transfer in now that Roberto Firmino is probably going to be out for a number of weeks. Rafinha could also be a player, as I don't really think the top 1000 managers will want to lose the likes of Salah, Foden, and Mbumo does have quite a nice game coming up in game week 12. So maybe Rafinha could be on the receiving end of a transfer out. I mean, if you are bringing in Heung-min Son, it's quite a bit more expensive, but if you don't really favor the Leeds fixtures, that could be quite a significant upgrade. But that's basically going to wrap the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for more videos coming up with the usual team selection ultimate guide coming up next week when we have a little bit more news about injuries and potential suspensions. But I'm going to be signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.